If you thought you needed gel to get neat knotless braids, think again. I completed this install without any products, y'all, just braiding hair and a comb. And in today's video, I'm gonna show you exactly how. My client, Maya, who is my little sister, has so much beautiful thick hair, but also suffers with patches of dry scalp sometimes. So I wanted to try to do a no gel install to see if that would help her condition. So I started off with a thorough blow dry after I washed and conditioned her hair. And I'm going to start off by splitting her hair into 4 sections. So one part down the middle and one part from ear to ear. The first tip that I'm going to give you guys if you're going to try out knotless braids with no product is to have a thorough blow dry. Now, you don't need to necessarily blow dry your hair to get knotless braids. We've kind of already busted that myth, hopefully now in 2024. But I do think that a thorough blow dry allows all of your strands to kind of reach the same length so that you have less flyaways and it's easier to grab all of the hairs at once, because usually the product or braiding gel or edge control, whatever braiders use, usually that is the product that's going to slick all the hair together and grab it and make it easier to get a neat braid. But since you're not using that, having a thorough blow dry is going to help that tremendously. So after those first parts, I'm going to start splitting the bottom first row into 4 sections. The braiding hair that I'm using is Outre's pre-stretch braiding hair in 12 inches. I kind of use a combo of 12 inches and I think 24 inches. I just tried to use a shorter length of hair because Maya is 9 years old, so she's pretty short and I didn't want the braids to end up being too long. I wanted it to be really age appropriate and stop at her waist length. So if you're doing children's hair, make sure to grab a shorter length. Let's get into this no gel knotless install. So of course I left my clips in my salon, but that's fine. We're gonna start off by splitting the piece into 3 sections and then go underneath the middle, grab the left, rotate, go underneath the middle and grab the right. Now we're gonna add the extension piece right after that first rotation in between index and thumb, place our index finger in the middle and continue to braid. So of course, if you know by now, if you've been following my channel, braiding is a repetitive pattern. So once you find your flow, perfect, keep going. As for how many pieces I'm adding, I have 2 answers. One being about 5 if you need a visual or kind of like a starting point of how many pieces to add. 5 is going to be your reference number. My second answer is going to be it also doesn't really matter how many pieces you put, and you shouldn't really be counting because some braids might need more braiding hair, some braids might need less, depending on whether or not your client's hair is thick or thin in some areas. It really all depends on the overall size of your braid. So you kind of have to take a step back and visually look at the size of your braid and compare it to the ones that are next to it to make sure that they're all ending up being the same size. I really hope that makes sense. If you guys are interested in in-depth breakdown of what I'm talking about, let me know and I can of course do that for you guys, because here on my channel we're all about braiding and I just want to help you guys as much as I can. So now we're kind of in the middle of her head, and here is a perfect example of what I'm saying. Here Maya's edges are a little bit thinner, as most people's edges or baby hairs are. So here I have to add a few more small pieces of braiding hair into this braid so that it can match the size of the other braids compared to if she had a super thick piece in the back middle of her head. I'm gonna have to add less braiding hair to make it even. So here I'm also trying to be very light and very non-tension. Like I'm not trying to pull all her edges out, okay? Maya is 9 years old. Maya needs to keep all the edges that she's got. So I try to take it easy on her scalp. And a tip for doing kids' hair is to just ask them, how do they feel? You know, I am an advocate for making kids' hairstyles tension-free, painless, because we all know the feeling of getting popped with the comb or getting our hair raked through with the brush because our parents are sick and tired of doing our hair. So I am an advocate for making kids feel comfortable and excited to get their hair done. Maya will ask me every single chance she gets, when is the next time I will be braiding her hair? And this is because I try to make it pain-free. I try to make her as comfortable as possible. She's just chilling, watching videos on her phone. We're chopping it up, talking. So I think all kids' appointments should kind of go like this. It should be an enjoyable experience for you and your kid client. So as we get to the top, here is my opinion on this no gel install. Should you do it? Should you not do it? Is your hair gonna last? Is it not? I have a very specific answer. So I think that this no gel install would be good for people who do not have a lot of flyaways. And by flyaways, I mean that most of your hair strands are around the same length. Here you can see Maya's hair. Most of her strands are about the same length. She doesn't have too many flyaways. And you can tell because when you part the hair and split it in half, there aren't really many small hairs sticking up, which if you do have a product like Shine and Jam or any braiding gel is going to be able to slick them down so that your overall look looks neat and professional. But if you don't have a lot of flyaways, you can kind of get away with not using product if the braider that's braiding your hair is gripping everything as they should. So here you can see like the base of her braid, there aren't little hairs sticking up. There is also another case where this install would be good for you if you are allergic to braiding gel, or if it causes your scalp to have a bad reaction, or if it just makes your scalp itchy. I have one client who doesn't like the smell of the braiding gel that I use. So any of these situations where you do have small flyaways but the product itself is causing a reaction to your scalp, go ahead and try out this method, because honestly I think health over look in certain styles, and especially because this is a protective style, you want your hair and your scalp to be healthy, and putting braiding gels and products on top of your scalp just might not be the best option for you. It really just depends on the person, depends on the client. And as a professional seasoned braider, you should be able to do both, with and without gel. In my opinion, I do feel like some braiders use very heavy, thick, dense products to try to cover up their lack of technique when it comes to braiding, because if you're able to just slick all of the hairs using a product, you can kind of get away with barely attaching the hair onto your client's natural hair. So I feel like that's kind of a cover up sometimes for some people, to just slap the product on there and then start braiding. But I do think that knowing how to do both makes you more experienced. And if you are somebody trying to grow your braiding business and get into the braiding industry as an entrepreneur, as a salon-based braider, it is so important to know how to do both. Alright y'all, we are on the last braid, and look at the parting. It is on point, no gel needed. And my mom even looked at me sideways when doing this install, because I was like, I'm not going to use any gel. And she was like, what do you mean? Like, it's not going to come out right. And I was like, just trust me on this one. I think it won't come out the same, but it will still come out very good. And throughout this process, Maya herself was even like, thank you for not using the gel, because the gel is so cold. So I just think it's interesting to try out new things just to see what clients think, what people might think. And of course, I will always prefer to use braiding gel, at least a little bit, to make my parts super duper crisp and the braids super sleek. I just feel like it adds an extra touch of a professional look with it. But at least we know now it is very much possible without. So, don't let anyone tell you that it's not possible. So overall, I do think that this is a good choice. It definitely came out just as good as I thought. But I do feel for clients that are trying to book this service without gel, it might be a little bit difficult at first because this is a new conversation being had in the braiding realm. But hopefully people catch on and they try this service without it, because it does help some people. And this is the final product, no gel knotless braids. Of course, you can tell that no product was used. Her scalp and hair is not shiny, but her braids are still popping. I didn't dip them in this clip, but look, braids on point. If this video was helpful for you guys, hit the thumbs up button and watch my other braiding tutorials right here.